One of the things that I know about life is that whatever season that you're in a season, is that you've been through other seasons before and that you've gotten through those. And what I need in life is I need to think and reflect upon those other seasons of life in order to help me with what's going on now. Sometimes I get too myopic. I get like really in the weeds of things, and it becomes like bogged down and difficult, and I feel like I can't move because there's just so much going on in life, and I just need a little bit more elevation to see what's going on. And generally when I can get a little bit more elevation, I realize, okay, I'm just in a season right now. For example, a season that I am in is I am a parent, and Jesus prayed for me. Right? And it's so good. And like we have way more tools than our parents ever had. I don't think my parents had tools, first of all. Our grandparents, they were just fighting Nazis. Like I don't know what they were doing. They didn't have therapists or like anybody like that helping out. I don't even think they had emotions, which is incredible. What we do as parents, gentle parenting. Anyone a parent here know what I'm talking about? Yes. Right? And all I have is like stories from my own family of tools that they gave me. Some of my favorite tools are threatening. That's always a fun one. Any good parents threats out there? Yeah. And we all know that when I threat, I'm not going to uphold it. Right? Yeah, I'm taking your TV away for 7 years. You're getting it back tomorrow because I'm going to need some space. I promise you that. I promise you that. Yeah. No yelling. Right? My parents were big yellers. That is very hard. Very hard. Right? Very, very difficult. Oh my gosh, parenting is just rough. And then, like, my kids they have no idea how good they have it. Right? They have it so good. We're doing so much work. We're doing so much therapy. And I'm like, we're just there's so many F words I want to say to your face right now, but I'm not. I'm not. That's how I feel in my heart, but I can't do it. And it was done to me, but I won't do it to you, but I'm thinking it. A lot. And parenting is hard. Parenting is hard. But I think about other seasons I've been in life, and this is like, these are like weird. Yeah, anyone ever been in like weird seasons? Anyone else was an evangelical when you were growing up? Oh my God. One of the best things about evangelicalism, overseas missions, am I right? Yeah! All right, drama, goodness, so much there. So much there. Some of you are like, man, I'm already triggered. I get it. I wouldn't do it again. It's very problematic, by the way. And really beautiful moments. I got so many stories. I've been South America, Africa, United States. I was a good evangelical baby. All right? And I don't know why I was reflecting on that season of life this week. I was just like, it reflected really just all of who I was and what I believed about God and what I think was important. And what I know about that season of life is over like the last 15 years since I no longer live in that world, I've had different reflections on that version of Cory. That's like Cory, like iPhone version like 4.0, right? Maybe we're on like 17.0 right now. But 4.0, there's other seasons of Cory where I look at that person and I'm like, what an idiot that guy was, right? Well, I would be so cynical about it and so angry and trash on it. And now I'm in like a season of like a ton of compassion. Like, oh, that's how I understood God. That's how I understood myself. That's how I understood faithfulness. Why would I be cynical towards that? Are there things to reflect upon? Would I do things differently? Do I understand global colonialism now? Yes, I do. So I'm going to make some different choices with my life. Do I understand the impact of global missions and what it means for local communities and how I went to South America to tell people about Jesus? They were already Catholic, right? They called him Jesus. Same name. Same name. Have you heard of Jesus? No, because he's Jesus. I get it, so we're trying to convert you, right? Weird. A weird thing to do. But I did it. But I can be gracious towards it now. And that's the gift of reflecting on the seasons of your life. There's all kinds of things that you've gone through. And I'm sure there's going to be a day that I look back, I'm just going to laugh, being a parent, right? Oh, it was so good and so wonderful. But in this season, it's hard to see. But there are other seasons that I've come out of, and I have so much grace for myself. And how hard I was working there, and I was giving it my best. And I can be so gracious to all the times that I failed, all the times that it didn't make sense, all the times that it didn't work out. And so today I want to talk about seasons. I want to talk about some seasonal work in our life. And to do that, we're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about missions. Already did that. Then we're going to talk about some seasonal work, and if we can do that, then we're going to talk about some reflections. If we can reflect, then I'm thinking about My Chemical Romance with some shirts on my sleeve. Great, fantastic, great. If we can do that, then we're going to talk about acceptance. And if we can talk about acceptance, then we're going to talk about ownership. And if we can talk about ownership, then some atomic habits, my friends. Any Enneagram 3s out there? You're the only ones that matter in this room in my mind. The rest of you don't know about it. If you don't know what the Enneagram is, welcome to this cult. It's going to be not a cult, but that's a joke. I hope you know. Because sometimes like people will find us on the internet and they'll hear me say these things and they'll like comment out like, no, that's a joke. Like that's, if you're a cult, you don't tell people you're a cult. We're not paying our staff enough to be a cult, I promise you. But when you see a Bentley in the parking lot, you know where we made it. None of that has to do with what I'm talking about. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. There's a time for everything. By the way, these words are so good. Thousands of years they have been true, and they're still true, and they will remain true. And I love that about Scripture. And I love that this is like a Scripture that I can come back to, and it's like so beautiful and good. And there are other parts of Scripture I read that are so wildly problematic. But I love coming to all of it and trusting in our faith tradition and trusting the words that are there and wrestling with it and sitting with it and not throwing it away and believing that this has influence and goodness in my life. So Ecclesiastes, my friends, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. God has made everything beautiful in its time. God has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. Beautiful words. The power of this passage is that for every single one of us, whatever season you're in is probably in that list. It's very all-encompassing. And you have been through other seasons there. And again, may I remind you that you got through that and you can get through this. And here's even the better news about that. That was version whatever 0.0 of you that got through that. This is your best version yet. This is your most mature self ever. This is you who has learned so much more. You can get through this. You can thrive through this. You can build in this. You can create in this. And we have a choice in the seasons of our life to either react to those seasons or we can create and make meaning in those seasons. And I just want to talk about some quick tools that we can have to make meaning, to create meaning in these seasons of life. The first tool that I want to think about is simply to reflect. Can you reflect on this season of life that you are in? Can you create time to reflect about what's going on? Can you take time to journal, to talk to somebody, to include a therapist? Can you take time to bring other people into the conversation? Have you ever had a conversation with yourself like over and over again, and then you said it out loud in a coffee and you're like, yeah, that was batshit crazy, right? You just said it out loud and you needed to do that. Or have you ever had a time in a coffee where you said it out loud and you're like, that is my purpose, isn't it? I can hear myself saying it. I was born for this. I know that I haven't had a job since November, but I'm made to be in the industry, and there is hope, and this is what I'm meant to do, and it's scary right now, but there's opportunity ahead of me. Man, I was brave enough to say in front of my entire church this morning, my body's not working for me at the moment. But what if I would be okay? Reflect on these seasons of your life. Reflect on them when they're good. Reflect on them when they're bad. Reflect on all of the in-between. But one of the things that we do as human beings, particularly in 2025, is it is so hard to reflect because we're so wildly distracted. You all have heard me all summer long. I hate my iPhone. I hate social media. I hate all of these things. And Reels are so awesome. But you have to be so intentional, so wildly intentional to reflect on our lives and not just to be distracted. What would it look like for each day for you to reflect, for you to be mindful of who you are and where you're at? And that as you reflect, I believe that it gets us a little bit out of the mire and we move a little bit higher in elevation. And maybe over enough time. For me, it is journaling still. I love when I journal regularly. And it's not even like complex, but I just like look back like 2 weeks ago and I'm like, I can see movement. And sometimes it's really hard for me to see movement if it's all just in my head and in my heart. But when I put it somewhere, it's like, oh, I've been taking steps the entire way. This mountain is apparently a little bit higher than I thought it was initially, but I am making movement and I am taking steps here, and I love that. And so what would it look like for your life right now to reflect, to take time for it? Who would you invite into your life to reflect with? This is always a big one for me. You don't have to invite everybody, by the way. If you put everything out there on Instagram, then everybody gets the opportunity to share an opinion. That's crazy, right? Maybe it's like 2 people, maybe it's like 3 people, maybe it's not them anymore because you realize that every time that you do share with them, they can't reciprocate in the way that you want. Maybe you're practicing finding that person who can walk with you in mutuality. Whatever it may be, would you reflect? Another tool, I'm supposed to write all those things on the board. I'll get to it eventually. The other thing is accept. I'm going to do it now. I have ADHD to like the umpteenth level. It's incredible. So I'll just slow down here a little bit. Reflect and accept. One of the hardest things in life to do is just to accept where I'm at. Accepting doesn't always mean that I'm okay with it, but accepting reality allows me to create a plan. Accepting reality allows you to do some further steps that we're going to talk about here in a little bit of taking ownership and responsibility for your life. Accepting reality is one of the steps that you will need before you're ever going to create different habits that are going to get you out of it. And the reason for that is that when we fight whatever reality is all of the time, we get in our own way. We sabotage ourselves. And one of the powerful things I think our faith teaches us is to accept what we're going through, to surrender. In the Garden of Gethsemane, talk about the greatest moment of surrender that even Jesus is saying to the world. By the way, thanks for adding to my sermon. Beautiful, chef's kiss. Even Jesus is saying in that moment, God, take this from me. What a human thing to say. But then, after a little bit longer, then Jesus will say, but if it's your will, then let it be done. I've accepted my fate. I'm accepting where I'm at. I'm going to surrender to this thing, and it's the surrender of this thing that's actually going to teach me. How many of you have not accepted and have not surrendered, and for 2 years you fight the thing, only to look back and you realize, I have been on the treadmill this entire time. Yeah. And part of accepting, part of surrendering is getting off of that treadmill. One of the beautiful things about accepting, I find, in the Serenity Prayer. Look at the Serenity Prayer with me. Do we have the Serenity Prayer? Oh, God. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think I've heard what you wanted to do together. Let's do it. Let's do it. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This thing never gets old, people. It never gets old. It's all right there. That's the kind of acceptance that you want. To accept the things that I cannot change. To be honest with myself in a way that this is the season that I am in, or maybe I keep coming back to the season for a reason, and I cannot change it. And maybe I should stop putting all my energy into the things that I cannot change. Maybe I need to put less energy into what Donald Trump is doing right now. I don't know, just for some of you, right? Maybe I need to put less energy to whatever Ant is saying on Facebook. I need to put less energy into what my boss thinks about me. I need to stop giving all of my power up to everybody else and what they're doing in the world, because I cannot change it all. If there are things that I can change, the courage to change the things that I can, again, I promise you that you in the comment section on Instagram is not changing what the White House is doing today. I almost can guarantee that for you. And how do you feel afterwards? Do you feel like, the Don's reading that right now, I'll tell you that. Melania picked up on that one. Whatever your thing is, it's low-hanging fruit to talk about, but it's just so real in the world. And it's not because
It's not because there's not real pain happening in the world because of decisions about administrations. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is accept the things that you cannot change, right? And the courage to change the things that you can. And here's the most important part, and this is the gift for us now, Abbey, the wisdom to know this. That we would be a community that practices wisdom. And we practice wisdom because we are so aware of the seasons that we're in. That we've reflected on them, can be aware of them. That I can know that in this season, I just have an 11-year-old. By the way, I got to pause for a second. This is like, can we get like really, really vulnerable a moment? One of the things I've so struggled as a pastor in this community over the last couple of years is like, my kids are getting older now. And I have spent so much time just being so wildly vulnerable from stage. Like sharing everything. Where people are like, I don't know if pastors allowed to say that in church. I know, me neither. But I've also experienced doing that and having people use it against me. And I can't afford to do that anymore when the kids get older. So what I'm saying is I don't know where I'm stepping right now with some of this stuff. I want to share it because I believe that vulnerability is so powerful. I believe it's so powerful that when you hear something on stage, you can say, me too. I'm not alone with that thing. And I'm terrified to share some of these things because I would never want to risk that they get hurt. I want to share things that would heal and bring life and bring bravery and courage to this room. But I'm asking you from the bottom of my heart, I want to share about my kids or share about being a dad or whatever. It's between us. Fair? Yeah. Thank you. I don't know what it's like to be a dad of an 11-year-old. I've never done it before. I have no idea what it's going to be like to be a dad of a 12-year-old. I've never done that before either. But I know that there's so many good people in this room who have been there. I know that the teams have sent 2 of their 3 kids off to college. And that I have people to look to and to talk to reflect with, to accept with. That's the gift of this room. We do that work with one another. If we can reflect well, if we can learn to accept, but I think that we also learn to take ownership. This one's hard. I think this one's particularly hard, and let me just go here because this is a fun one. Statistically speaking, there's liberals in this room. Not everybody, statistically speaking. There are a lot of strengths of liberalism. I don't think this is one of them. Truthfully. And I'm okay critiquing it. I've spent years critiquing the conservative church. That was easy to do in a room like this. And now I want to critique us a little bit. Because I want to grow. Because the goal was not to be conservative, and the goal was not to be liberal. The goal was to be wise in Jesus. Amen. The goal is to be faithful. The goal is maturity. The goal is healing. The goal is transformation. That's the goal. That's the thing that I'm striving after. And I just think sometimes in the culture that I live in, ownership is not always there because we're so busy doing this. It's their fault. It's their fault. There's never enough. There's tons of cynicism. And there's always somebody else to be mad at. And that's just not interesting to me. And what I want to learn and what I want to practice instead is I want to be a people who take deep ownership for our actions, for the things that we do. And sometimes even ownership, you've shared so vulnerably about your divorce. Like, it's a beautiful thing. You've got to share in a church that you could never, like, can you imagine ever that you would share that out loud in a church? But I don't, right? Probably not. And what I hear in you is I haven't heard cynicism from you, which I think is really, really beautiful and super, super mature. And there's an ownership that you have in that choice. That's a choice that you made for your life. I'm sorry that I'm picking on you, I'm not trying to. But I hear it in our community all the time. When you get to say, I chose to come out to my parents. I chose that decision in that relationship. I will take responsibility for the consequences, good or bad, for what that choice will be. That's maturity. That's growing up. That's who we want to be. And it's the recognition of not every choice that you're going to make is going to be perfect, by the way. Progress, not perfection. But you have enough health, you've done enough work, you've done enough reflection, you've done enough acceptance in your life. You've said that serenity prayer like 10,000 times a day. And with the best wisdom that you have today, and with your best understanding of God that you have in this moment, you're going to take ownership for your life. That's a big deal. That's who I want to be. I want to be a community that takes ownership and is responsible for our actions and for the seasons of life that we're in. And know that there's a gracious God out there, that even when you take ownership and responsibility for that, and it's not perfect, what if you're going to be okay even in that? Because what if that's just what it means to be human? And what if you need to erase all the versions of God and perfection out of you? And you need to trust that it's much more story about wisdom and growing and evolution than it was about never messing things up. Because that's crazy talk, by the way. I did that version of God forever. It didn't work for me. I don't know if it will work for anybody, because I just don't even think that's what the scriptures are teaching us. I think it's, honestly, being honest with us, there's a season for everything. And those seasons change. And we have to be adaptable and grow in it. But as you grow in it, would you take some ownership? The last thing is, we change our habits. This is a huge one for me, and if you've been around New Abbey for a while, then would you hear this? Jesus never asked you to believe in him, which is super interesting. Jesus only asks you to follow him. Jesus is a Jewish rabbi. I say this all the time. One of the hardest things for evangelical Christians in the United States to understand about Jesus is that he was a Jew, right? And that Jesus had a very different way of thinking about things and sharing wisdom. And Jesus was much more interested in show me than tell me. And Jesus wanted to show his followers a way of life that worked for them. Jesus wanted to show them what it looked like to be people of reconciliation, to be people of peace, to be people of grace, to be people of love. That's way more compelling to me and way more interesting. Jesus constantly gave us the litmus that wherever Jesus went, Jesus would leave people better off than he found them. That's Jesus. That just doesn't happen because we articulate beliefs all the time. Our ideas, God has sometimes get us into a certain season of life. Our ideas are not always going to get us out of there. What gets you through life, what actually brings healing, what brings transformation, what brings maturity is actually practice. It's way harder. And you know that in the rest of your life, by the way. So let me get away from esoteric spirituality here, this existential, what is Cory saying? And I use this one all the time. I would love abs. I've used this one. I would love them. I just think they would be great. I want to see myself in a bathing suit with them. I just kind of want to know, right? I can reflect on my abs all day long. I can accept whatever, right? I can take ownership. Well, actually, this better version of doing it. I don't know. Why did I get on the ab one? Okay, I don't know. But you get the point. The point is this. Maybe you don't get the point. The point is this. You have to create practices and you have to create habits if you want abs. It's just that simple, right? It's called a calorie deficit, Cory. When you get in double, animal style, add chuck chilies, fries, and a large Dr. Pepper, no abs. That's just the way that it works. And I know that. And there's all kinds of other practical decisions that we know in life with the relationships that we have or the people that we know, where it's I keep doing these same things and I have this wild expectation that something's going to be different. Why would I have that expectation? Right? I should have an honest expectation for what I'm putting into this thing. Not ideologically, but actually in practice. And I think what Jesus is constantly inviting us into is more practice. And Jesus is so gracious in that. And Jesus is constantly saying, come and follow me. Come, let me show you a better way of life. Let me show you some different habits. Let me show you what it's like to slow down this summer. Let me show you what it's like to find rest for your soul. Let me show you what it's like to bring about peace. Let me show you what it's like to show kindness to all people. Let me show you what it's like to experience gentleness. Let me show you what love is, not in words, but when I take you into a Samaritan village, which is another way of saying, when I make you have dinner, Anthony Bourdain style, face to face with your enemy, let me show you what love is like. Jesus is the ultimate practitioner of healing, of transformation, and maturity. And it's very hard to go do that. And so we start with things like reflecting and accepting and taking ownership. And then when it comes to habits, I would just simply say this. Start wildly small. If you've ever read Atomic Habits, great book, go do it, or ChatGPT it, way easier. Start with something that takes you 2 minutes. It goes like this. You can say to yourself, I am going to run a marathon, or you can say to yourself, I am a runner. And if I say to myself, I am a runner, then something that I can do in 2 minutes, I can just simply tie my running shoes. I'm not going to do anything else after that, but can I just go to the door, sit on my porch, and put my running shoes on? And then maybe I'm just that much closer to go running that day. Make sense? I can just put one more resume out there. I can just set myself up just to talk to my coworker about sending that email to my boss about the thing that I wanted to say, right? But for 2 minutes, I'm going to take that step to go say that thing. I can finally reach out to my parent. I'm just going to text them to say, hey, can we set up a time for a conversation?
I know that I'm in such need of therapy, and I don't know how to do it, and I don't know how to ask for help, but I'm going to email info@newabbey.org to say, and I don't have any money, and I don't know where to start, but man, can I just have $200, and can you recommend a therapist, and I'm just going to start somewhere. I'm going to do something. It is only going to take me 2 minutes, because I actually have been reflecting on my life, and I'm accepting the kind of where I'm at, and there's some ownership, and I need some habits to move forward, so what can I do today that's not going to get in the way of myself? Sound good? Yeah. Find 3 or 4 people around you and answer this question. What habits can you commit to in this season? Enjoy.